What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my bets placed for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Vegas 72, headlined by a bantamweight clash, potentially 5 rounds of action between Yadong Song and Ricky Simone. And this card has been riddled with canceled bouts, short notice replacements, debuting fighters. I mean, the works on this card. Every time I check Twitter, I'm scared that my man Marcel Dorff is going to cancel another bout. But we are down to 11 fights on this card. We're not even at the weigh-ins yet, so more funny business potentially to be had. I am down to 3 money lines and a small handful of props, but I've got some recommended ones. I talked on my full card breakdown about certain prop ideas, the detailed breakdowns of how these will go down. And on my live stream I did yesterday with Wiz Does, we went through a lot of just back and forth about fights that we were mostly on the same page about, and just how we see it playing out from a prop perspective as well. So check that out. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll break into the small amount of bets I have on this card, and rather quickly too. So again, I try to be brief in this video, and I just tried to record this not but a few minutes ago and realized that the audio did not record. So I've already poured up my celebratory drink to be done with this content for the week, but hey, we're back at it again, so let's go over it one more time. And cheers, you guys. So, first money line of my betting slate is actually Josh Quinlan, who does have a short notice replacement in Trey Waters. Quinlan was supposed to take on Angelusa up until a couple weeks ago, and that would have been a much tougher test for him, in my opinion, just because of how durable Angelusa is, and he's pretty well-rounded as well. But Trey Waters, don't have a lot of those issues with this guy, who's coming in, making his debut on short notice. We saw Trey Waters on the Contender Series get finished by Gabriel Bonfim by submission. No shame there, but the shame is really in how big this guy is at 6'5" at welterweight, and how hittable he is. Kind of a hands-low, loose counterpunching style. He can fall apart down the stretch of a fight just by falling apart on the numbers and not getting the significant strike output of his opponents, getting touched up, and then having to pull something out of his ass later in a fight. And that's what he just did in the LFA not but a couple of weeks ago. On the 14th of April, he knocked out Jalen Fuller on the LFA card. So very quick turnaround. We'll see how he is on the scales. It's another giant weight cut for this guy, I'm sure. And Josh Quinlan is a power puncher with just death in both of his hands. Pretty hard-hitting and pretty big Hawaiian, muscular, 6 foot tall, long reach. He's going to be able to touch that chin of Trey Waters and knock him out. So, I think a 6-1 record, 1 no contest on the Contender Series. So all said and done, it's been 7 wins, 7 finishes, including that no contest for Josh Quinlan, who just came off of a successful round 1 knockout of Jason Witt in his debut a few months ago. So I like the inside the distance props for Josh Quinlan. I like the under 1.5 at a kind of like a pick'em price tag, minus 125 or so. I like that here. And whenever they release the fight doesn't go to decision, might be a good parlay piece. But I took the money line of Josh Quinlan at minus 150. I put 2 units on that. I'm very confident he gets the job done. The next money line I have is all the way up in the co-main event, and that is Caio Borralho. And that's now a money line. It was a parlay with Natan Levy over Pete Rodriguez. That fight got scratched, so now I have 2 units at minus 295 on Caio Borralho to defeat Michal Oleksiejczuk, the Polish boxer, whereas Caio Borralho is very good at everything. He's a good karate, southpaw stance, striker, nice straight left, good 3-2 combination, but he'll bait you into thinking you're going to have a striking battle at kickboxing range. Then he blast double legs you, takes you to the mat, backpacks you, and looks for the submission. And although he hasn't gotten one in the UFC yet, or even a finish for that matter, he's racked up massive amounts of control time against Omar Gadzhiev, massive amounts of control time against Armen Petrosyan. And I see this fight going a lot like that Petrosyan fight, where he strikes for about 30 seconds to a minute, takes Michal Oleksiejczuk down, and probably gets it done inside the distance. But I could see him staying positionally sound and getting a decision as well. So I got 2 units on this. It was supposed to be a parlay, but now it's just on a very confident minus 295 money line of Caio Borralho. But I do like his inside the distance prop as well. That's minus 135. And since that money line on Borralho has swollen up to like minus 370 on some books, I could see him getting the job done inside the distance. You don't have to choose between if he mounts and gets ground and pound or if he grabs the neck of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. So minus 135, not bad in hindsight when you look at how much you're chopping down that money line. And he will be working for a choke the entire time. My final money line is in the main event at bantamweight. I am on the Ricky Simón side. I had a bet on him for a couple of units at minus 125 in the 3-round fight last week. Now I'm getting a better line at minus 115. Put that same 2-unit bet on him. I think these 2 rounds extra in a 5-round fight do benefit Ricky Simón because this guy is a minute winner. Averages over 6 takedowns successfully landed per 15 minutes in the UFC over a massive sample size of like 9 or 10 fights. And he's gotten increasingly better competition, just coming off of taking the undefeated O away from Jack Shore last year in a club and sub victory. So his hands are coming along. He's got power in his hands, a vicious hook, dropped Jack Shore, and then he dove onto an arm triangle submission in round 2. So not bad. He's going to be working every second of this fight to either get the fight to the mat or throw strikes up top. But Song Yadong, that's really where his expertise lies, is in that boxing, the combination, being pretty unpredictable with his target selection as well. And I think he's got a very good potential to win this fight inside the distance in rounds 1, 2, maybe even 3. But after that, I think if we can get through that danger zone of the first 15 minutes, I think Ricky Simón will take over and win this fight down the stretch. Now, maybe the smart thing to do here is to play this from a prop perspective. If you see violence from Yadong Song, early, I think that's completely a reasonable thing to think. Or you can see violence from Ricky Simón getting a submission when he grounds the fight successfully. Either way, it's like a pick-em price tag for this to be under 4.5. So it's like minus 120, minus 115 for the under 4.5. I don't hate that at all, but I'm already on a moneyline side. I've planted my flag for Ricky Simón, who I think is still very much in his prime at 30 years old at bantamweight and getting better. This is a great chance to prove himself and just to be a workhorse in this 5-round fight. So that's the side I'm on. Don't hate anybody passing on this one or just looking at the finish props for either man in this fight. So those are the money lines I have. I do have some violence props scattered. 3 fights down from the main event. Cody Brundage versus Rodolfo Vieira. I do have the fight does not start round 3. Minus 200. I put 1 unit on that. So just looking for a half of a unit payout in return for a violent fight. I think Cody Brundage will initiate as the aggressor. He often is front-loaded with his finishing potential, looks for, kind of like that wrestle boxing style. And I think he's going to be throwing wildly in this fight because usually he wants to get the fight to the mat on his terms, but he's going to be scrapping with a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master in this fight. So not sure how much he's going to dabble on the ground. He might be actually stuffing more takedowns than he does attempt them, but either way, I mean, Rodolfo Vieira is a guy who's got, some striking that's coming along as well, but he will want to get this fight to the mat, force a scramble, and look for the neck or the potential submission on Cody Brundage. And that's where I think this fight is going to end, is Vieira getting his hand raised by submission, but either man could get the job done. Brundage in round 1 by knockout. This guy has pulled some victories out of his ass before, getting hurt by Dolce Lungiambula and getting the guillotine, getting stalked down by Tresean Gore, who's a very powerful fighter as well. Managed to bounce himself off the cage and get a nice counter right hand and knock him out. So, Cody Brundage could definitely get this done as long as somebody gets their hand raised. Even if Rodolfo Vieira gasses like he did against Fluffy Hernandez, as long as this ends before round 3 starts, we'll cash that 1 unit bet. Now, the other prop I have is early on the prelims at flyweight between Charles Johnson and Cody Durden. This is an anti-violence spot. I think both of these guys are very durable. I think this goes to the scorecards. And we've got the wrestler in Cody Durden versus the striker in Charles Johnson. You've seen a lot of opinions going either way on this fight. A lot of love for Cody Durden has come in, though, and now the line is tightened up. Slight underdog for Cody Durden, slight favorite for Charles Johnson. I think this fight just ends up being close. I think I see this going to the scorecards for sure. Neither man has been finished by strikes, and only Cody Durden has been tapped out before getting clubbed and subbed by Muhammad Makayev. But I think this is going to be a battle between the control time of Cody Durden, who's going to be working from round 1 to round 2, and even into round 3, although he does tend to fade as the fight goes on. Charles Johnson, he tends to speed up as the fight goes on and sort of accelerate into a fight. stuffing takedowns, looking for the striking metrics going into his favor. So I think one judge at least will be confused at where this fight took place the most. Did the striking damage of Charles Johnson over 3 rounds mean more than all of the control time and takedown attempts and successful takedowns landed of Durden? There's always one judge in Vegas that's going to say, I didn't see any wrestling, and then there's one judge that says, I only saw wrestling. They never know where to land on that. Fight goes to split decision is going to be plus 450. I put a quarter unit on that. I put 0.1 units on either guy at plus 800 each to win by split, and I put the 1 unit on the fight to go to decision at minus 180. So the first step is just to go to decision. We'll cash that bet, and then, of course, one judge being confused is the other part of the bet, and we'll cash on that. So those are the props for that fight. 4 props in total for 1.45 units invested on the Durden-Johnson fight. So those wrap up all the props that I have on the card, but the ones that I do recommend, I like the Fernando Padilla versus Julian Erosa fight to be violent as well. The fight doesn't go to decision for that featherweight clash. Is minus 180 to minus 190. I like that spot. Both guys are very potent finishers. I think Padilla has like 12 finishes out of 14 wins. Erosa has like 23 out of 28 wins, something like that. So very potent finishers. Padilla inside the distance himself, plus 215. He's a very good grappler, but his Muay Thai is slick, and we've seen how chinny Erosa has been. Like 6 times out of his pro fights, he's been knocked out. The KO prop in particular for Padilla is plus 330. I like all of those as options. Martin Budai to beat Jake Collier, just as money line in general. He's a slight underdog, like minus 105. I like Budai to win this fight. I think he's the bigger natural heavyweight. If he goes back to the cage clinching style that really got him to the UFC and got him his first couple wins in the organization, I'm talking about Chris Barnett in his debut and the Dana White Contender Series bout over Lorenzo Hood. Both of those and all of his regional tape overseas, he's wearing out his opponents on the clinch wrestling side of things. He's using all 266 pounds of himself to just wear on them. Use clinch knees, clinch elbows. Pre-UFC, he would even get the fight to the ground and just rain down ground and pound for the stoppage. So I like Budai in this fight. Josh Quinlan, fight not going to decision, the under 1.5 I spoke on. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk to win by round 1 knockout is plus 1,400. I think that's really his only way to win this fight. It could almost be his money line. The guy has got a lot of knockouts on his record, and most of them are under 1.5 rounds, if not in round 1. So if he gets it done, I think it's a lucky punch during the striking portion of the Caio Borralho fight early in round 1. So that's not a bad prop if you're too heavily invested in Caio and you want to hedge out a little bit. Stephanie Egger welcoming the newcomer Russian Ronda Alexieva into the UFC. I don't think Alexieva is very good. The fight not going to decision is plus 110 for this bantamweight scrap. That could be a safer way to play it. Otherwise, if you want to take Egger specifically to get the judo throw, get the fight to the mat, and probably get a submission in round 1, that's plus 450. If you want to leave the option for her to just win inside the distance, and, because against Shayna Young, she got the ground and pound with elbows, so that's an option as well. You can take Egger inside the distance. That's not a bad number either. I want to say that was around plus 200 or something like that. I know we're not getting crazy odds for a women's bantamweight finish, but, when you consider that she's a minus 300 favorite against somebody who I don't think is that good in Irina Alexieva. And yeah, we're looking at Stephanie Egger inside the distance at plus 135. Okay, that's not very good. I'd probably just bite the bullet and take her by like round 1 submission. That's at plus 450 to plus 500. So those are the props I like. All of my betting action I do have, which isn't very much, but just one of those weeks. There aren't many fights to choose from. I may just have like a degenerate round robin, which I tend to do from time to time. I'm only putting like $13 to like $25 on this, so I'm not really tracking this bet. It's like 0.1 units, to 0.2 units, but I like Brundage round 1 KO at like plus 1,000. The Padilla inside the distance at plus 200 or more, like I talked about. Probably that Egger round 1 submission at plus 400 to plus 500. And probably Quinlan by KO. I'll probably throw all of those into like a degenerate round robin where if all of them hit, we make a very big payout for very little investment. If a couple of them hit, we still cash out a little bit of cash there. So those are the spots I'm looking at from a betting perspective. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you guys have from a betting perspective on this very sketchy fight card. which might have less than 10 fights by the time the weigh-ins wrap up. So let's hope that we get as many fights as possible. These cards are always sneaky with being very entertaining from a fan perspective. And I will talk to you guys very soon. So again, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It really helps out trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. You guys are the best. I love each and every one of you. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.